forest was darker than I expected. It was my first solo camping trip, and I had chosen this remote location to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. The trees were tall and dense, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blocked out most of the moonlight. I set up my tent near a small clearing, the only patch where the moon's pale glow managed to seep through. As the night fell, the forest took on an eerie stillness. The air grew colder, and the usual chorus of crickets fell silent, replaced by an unsettling, almost oppressive quiet. I sat by the campfire, the only source of light and warmth in the encroaching darkness, feeling an increasing sense of unease. The flames flickered wildly, casting long, distorted shadows that danced menacingly against the surrounding trees. The campfire's glow did little to dispel the darkness, merely pushing back against it in a narrow circle. Outside this fragile perimeter, the blackness seemed almost tangible, pressing in from all sides. Around midnight, the restlessness within me became too much to bear. I decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air and the exercise would clear my mind. I grabbed my flashlight and ventured into the woods, leaving the warmth and comfort of the fire behind. As I stepped into the darkness, the beam of the flashlight cut through the inky blackness, illuminating only a narrow, uneven path ahead. The beam was swallowed up quickly by the surrounding darkness, making the forest seem infinitely larger and more oppressive. Each step I took seemed to amplify the sounds of my surroundings. The crunching of leaves beneath my boots and the occasional snap of a twig felt unnaturally loud, echoing through the stillness of the forest. After walking for about 15 minutes, I stumbled upon something unexpected: an old, decrepit cabin. It stood alone in a small clearing, its wooden walls weathered and rotting. Ignoring my instincts, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The interior was as dilapidated as the exterior, with cobwebs hanging from the ceiling and dust covering every surface. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper, barely audible over the sound of my own breathing. It was coming from the back of the cabin. I walked towards the source of the whispering, my flashlight flickering, as if struggling to stay on. In the back room, I found a small, old-fashioned bed, its sheets tattered and stained. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, and I realized it was coming from beneath the bed. I crouched down there, under the bed. I saw the source of the whispers, a small, dusty journal. As I touched it, the whispering stopped abruptly. I opened the journal, its pages brittle and yellowed with age. The entries were written in a spidery, almost illegible script, detailing the life of the woman who had once lived in the cabin. Her name was Emily, and as I read her words, a story of tragedy and loss unfolded. But as I delved deeper into the journal, the cabin seemed to grow colder. The dim beam of my flashlight began to flicker erratically, casting strange, jittery shadows on the walls. In the corner of the room, near the old, dusty mirror, something shifted. My heart skipped a beat as I saw a faint, ghostly figure emerging from the shadows. It was Emily, her spectral form barely visible but unmistakably present. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes hollow and filled with a deep, mournful sadness. The tattered remnants of a dress seemed to float around her, as though caught in an unseen breeze. Emily's ghostly form hovered silently, her gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that pierced through the darkness. The flickering light from my flashlight cast erratic patterns across her ethereal figure, making her appearance even more unsettling. Her presence seemed to distort the air around her, making it feel heavier and colder. I stared in horror, the journal slipping from my grasp as I tried to process what I was seeing. In a sudden, panic-driven impulse, I scrambled to my feet. I turned and fled from the cabin, my footsteps echoing through the darkened forest. The forest's oppressive silence seemed to close in around me, and the flickering light from my flashlight cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to reach out for me. The image of Emily's ghostly figure lingered in my mind. I burst into the clearing where my campfire still burned. I quickly packed up my belongings. As I drove away from the forest, the oppressive darkness receded in the rearview mirror, but the haunting image of Emily's ghost stayed with me. I knew I would never return to that place. The encounter had left an indelible mark on me, and the forest, with its dark secrets and ghostly apparitions, would remain forever out of reach.